It was pure chaos. 15 of the brightest engineers in the company, some with PhDs, others with decades of experience, stood helpless in front of a humming, half-lit prototype. This wasn't just another failed test. This was the moment everything was supposed to work. And it didn't. Wires were everywhere. Schematic diagrams covered whiteboards. Code scrolled endlessly across 3 wide monitors. Every few seconds, a warning alert flashed. Core signal failure. System unresponsive. Each attempt to reboot triggered new errors. The system either shorted out or went completely silent. Components overheated. Fans spun wildly. Even the backup relays had failed. The team was out of options, and out of time. The project had taken 3 years to develop. It was their flagship design, a smart energy management core capable of reducing industrial power waste by 40%. A breakthrough. A revolution. And a guaranteed $80 million government contract, if it worked today. Now, it was on the verge of collapse. The lead engineer, a seasoned veteran named Mitchell, stood with his arms crossed, face pale. He had seen delays before, bugs, setbacks, but nothing like this. His voice cracked as he barked at his team. Run diagnostics again. Start from the top. There's no way it's a full system failure. An assistant nervously replied, we already did. Twice. Every path leads to the same dead node. Another engineer shook his head. It's like something's shorting the main signal before it even reaches the modulator. But everything checks out on paper. Frustration reached its boiling point. Mitchell slammed his tablet down onto the metal table. We've tried everything. We need a miracle. And that's when it happened. A knock. Soft, almost hesitant, barely audible over the tension buzzing in the room. Heads turned. One of the junior engineers walked over to the side door of the lab and cracked it open. Standing there, holding a small cardboard package and wearing a weathered courier uniform, was a delivery driver. His name tag read, Jamal. He smiled politely. Delivery from TechCore Supply, he said. The engineer signed the handheld scanner and took the box. No one paid much attention. Most were already back to arguing theories and rechecking data streams. Just another routine delivery. But Jamal didn't leave right away. He stepped slightly into the room, drawn by the rows of blinking lights and tangled wiring. His eyes scanned the prototype, focused, alert. Not just casual interest. Something deeper. He pointed toward the central housing. That main signal cable, it looks like it's grounded to the wrong relay. That might be why the signal keeps dropping. Silence. No one responded right away. Most assumed he was joking. Or just making conversation. But Jamal's tone wasn't uncertain, it was confident, direct, almost technical. Mitchell turned, eyebrows raised. What? Jamal nodded toward the junction box. I've seen similar setups before. If that cable grounds to the secondary modulator instead of the isolation coil, you're gonna keep shorting out the main line. Might be worth checking. A few engineers looked at one another, confused. One whispered, he's not on the team, right? Another engineer, curious, desperate, walked over to check the wiring Jamal had pointed out. A few seconds later, his eyes widened. He's right. The grounding is off. Mitchell blinked. What the hell? That shouldn't even be possible. We've reviewed that line 5 times. But it was true. The room fell into an eerie silence, not out of disbelief, but realization. This delivery driver had just spotted a problem a team of world-class engineers missed. And things were about to get even more interesting. Jamal wasn't just another delivery guy. He didn't wear a lab coat. He didn't have a badge or a technical title. He wore the simple gray and blue uniform of a local courier service. He blended into the background of this high-tech facility, in and out with packages, barely noticed. But Jamal had a secret. Beneath the calm demeanor and routine deliveries was a self-taught electronics expert. In his free time, Jamal consumed everything he could about circuits, signals, and hardware repair. YouTube tutorials, free online courses, repair manuals from garage sales. If it explained how things worked, he absorbed it. While others spent weekends out or relaxing, Jamal was in his tiny garage, surrounded by open devices, TVs with missing backs, stripped radios, half-disassembled drones, and recycled power supplies. He didn't do it for money or recognition. He did it because he needed to know how things worked. His curiosity wasn't casual, it was relentless. If a system failed, Jamal wouldn't sleep until he figured out why. And when he did, he'd rebuild it faster, cleaner, and more efficiently than before. No formal education. No certificates. Just real, applied knowledge. That day in the lab, he was just doing his job. He walked in to deliver a small box of parts. But what he walked into was a room buzzing with tension and technical confusion. As he entered, the conversation was hard to ignore. The signal's still dead. We've rerouted the current 5 times. Still nothing. Push it again and we could blow the entire core. Jamal slowed his steps. His eyes drifted from the faces to the machine itself, a half-assembled unit with dozens of visible connection points and external processors. He recognized the configuration. Not exactly, but close enough. It reminded him of a signal booster he once repaired using scavenged parts from a busted server rack. He tilted his head slightly, squinting at the junction port. And then, despite the nerves tugging at his throat, he spoke up. Sorry to interrupt, but, that cable's not grounded properly. You'll never get signal like that. The entire room froze. 15 engineers, some with master's degrees, some veterans in aerospace, software, and energy systems, turned to look at the delivery guy who had just questioned their setup. The lead engineer raised an eyebrow. Thanks, but we've got this handled, he said with a half-smile. The kind that dismissed someone without fully insulting them. But Jamal didn't flinch. No disrespect, he said calmly, but I've worked on systems like this, maybe not this big, but same principles. If you ground that line to the secondary relay and bypass the modulator, the signal should stabilize. Worth a shot. This time, no one laughed. The language he used was too precise. Too specific. This wasn't a guess. He knew what he was talking about. The terms rolled off his tongue naturally, without the hesitation of someone trying to bluff. The engineers looked at each other again. Jamal didn't demand anything. He wasn't arrogant or pushy. He simply observed, identified a weak point, and offered a real solution. All in less than 60 seconds. That's when it hit them. This guy wasn't lucky. He was sharp. Focused. Experienced. And it raised a bigger question, one no one wanted to say out loud yet. How did someone without formal training spot what 15 experts missed? The air in the room felt different now. Not because Jamal had said something out of place, but because, deep down, the engineers suspected he might actually be right. And if he was? Everything was about to change. For a few long seconds, no one moved. The delivery driver, this uninvited outsider, had just made a technical call that directly challenged what 15 elite engineers had spent hours, even days, trying to fix. Some stared at him with skepticism. Others with quiet curiosity. But no one said a word. Jamal simply stood there. Calm. Confident. Not cocky. His eyes remained fixed on the part of the machine he had referenced earlier. The grounding relay, just behind the signal modulator. To him, the flaw was obvious. To them, it had been invisible. The tension broke when one of the younger engineers, still standing near the junction box, double-checked the grounding lead Jamal had pointed out. His voice was quiet, but it carried across the room. He's actually right. This isn't grounded to the coil, it's running straight to the secondary power loop. Another engineer leaned in for a closer look. What? That's not how it's wired in the diagram. They pulled up the schematic on a nearby monitor. Sure enough, the plan called for grounding to the isolation coil. But somewhere between theory and assembly, the line had been connected incorrectly, likely during a rushed last-minute fix. The lead engineer, Mitchell, stepped forward. He didn't look angry. He looked stunned. He ran a hand over his face and exhaled hard. This wasn't a minor oversight. It was the core issue. And this guy, this delivery driver, had found it by walking into the room for 30 seconds. Mitchell looked Jamal in the eye. You really think rerouting that line and bypassing the modulator will work? Jamal nodded. I've seen signal instability like this before. If you push the current through the modulator when the grounding is off, the signal collapses. Bypass it and reground correctly, and the pathway stabilizes. Mitchell paused, thinking. Then he said something no one expected to hear that day. Let him try. Half the room blinked. What? Mitchell turned to his team. We've been staring at this thing for days. We're out of ideas. Let's do it. One engineer hesitated. With respect, he's not certified. If something blows, we'll supervise every step, Mitchell cut in. He doesn't touch anything without approval. But I want to hear him out. And with that, Jamal stepped forward. He didn't gloat. He didn't hesitate. He simply moved with quiet precision. The engineers cleared space for him. Someone handed him a pair of insulated gloves. Another pulled up the wiring diagram and mirrored it on a nearby tablet. Jamal examined the relays, traced the line with a probe, and carefully outlined what he planned to do. He walked them through each step. Detach the grounding wire from the secondary power loop. Reroute it to the coil. Bypass the signal modulator using the spare auxiliary channel. Restore current flow. He didn't over-explain. He didn't under-explain. Just straight facts, clean execution, total control. The room was silent as he made the final connection. Mitchell gave the nod. All right. Power it up. One of the engineers activated the system. The hum of electricity returned, this time smooth, steady. The warning lights that had blinked red for hours flicked off, one by one. A green indicator lit up on the main console. Then, the display screen came to life. Signal, stable. Core power, optimal. The room erupted. Cheers, stunned laughter, hands on heads. After hours of frustration, after every test had failed, a delivery driver had just fixed their flagship prototype in under 10 minutes. Jamal didn't celebrate. He just smiled, stepped back, and handed the gloves to the next engineer. He'd done what he came to do. And the room would never look at him the same way again. The room was still buzzing, but not from the machine. It was the energy, the shift. Moments ago, Jamal had been just another face in a uniform. Now, the very people who had brushed him off were leaning in, asking him to explain what he saw, how he knew, what else they might have missed. The prototype was running perfectly. The system logs showed stable voltage. Signal flow was consistent. No more loopbacks. No more failure alerts. What had been dead for days was now fully operational, and the only person who saw the fix wasn't even supposed to be in the room. Mitchell, the lead engineer, shook his head in disbelief. You just saved this company millions of dollars, he said quietly. And probably a few of our jobs. Jamal just smiled. Happy to help. It wasn't arrogance. It was humility, the kind that comes from someone who knows what they know, but doesn't feel the need to prove it. But Mitchell wasn't done. What's your background? He asked. Where'd you study? Jamal hesitated for the first time that day. I didn't. No formal degree. I just taught myself. There was a pause. One of the engineers frowned. You're not in the field? Nope, Jamal replied. Just a guy who likes figuring things out. That moment hit harder than anyone expected. The realization sank in. This wasn't some hidden genius from MIT. He wasn't an intern from another department. He was a courier. A part-time delivery driver. And he had just out-diagnosed, and outperformed, an entire elite team. Mitchell turned to one of his senior engineers. Get HR on the line. The room blinked again. You're hiring him? One asked. You're damn right I am, Mitchell said. This guy thinks like an engineer. He solves like one. He is one. He looked at Jamal again. You ever consider doing this full-time? Jamal's eyes widened slightly. He had dreamed of that moment for years. Reading manuals at night. Watching lectures online. Fixing broken electronics in his garage for friends. But no one had ever asked. No one had ever looked. Yeah, he said. I've considered it. Good, Mitchell replied. Because as of today, if you're willing, you're on the team. The offer came with everything, full salary, on-site training, mentorship, and access to every resource in the building. No red tape. No gatekeeping. Just respect earned through action. Why does this matter? Because for years, Jamal had been overlooked. Not because he lacked talent, but because he didn't fit the mold. No degree. No resume with prestigious internships. Just skill, drive, and a relentless hunger to learn. And that's a truth most industries don't like to admit. Genius doesn't always come dressed for the part. It doesn't always wear the right badge or carry the right credentials. Sometimes, it shows up with a package in one hand and a solution in the other. Jamal didn't just fix a machine that day. He cracked open a blind spot, the dangerous assumption that only certain people are worth listening to. And the ripple effect started immediately. Word spread fast. Within 48 hours of the incident, someone inside the lab had leaked the footage to a friend, a short clip showing the moment the prototype roared to life after Jamal's fix. No context. Just a voice off-camera whispering, "Wait, the delivery guy fixed it?" By the end of the week, it was everywhere. LinkedIn. Reddit. Twitter. Tech blogs. Morning news segments. The story of the delivery driver who outsmarted 15 engineers became a headline no one could ignore. At first, people thought it was just another feel-good internet myth. But then the company confirmed it. Interviews followed. Jamal, camera-shy and modest as ever, simply told the truth. I've always loved how things work. I didn't do it to prove anything. I just saw a problem and offered what I knew. That authenticity hit a nerve. In an industry obsessed with credentials, certifications, and polished resumes, Jamal's story exposed something bigger. Talent isn't always recognized, even when it's right in front of you. Tech recruiters took notice. Startups reached out. STEM programs began using his story in classrooms. Even CEOs began sharing his quote. You don't have to be in the room to understand what's happening. But sometimes, speaking up is all it takes to get invited in. Jamal wasn't looking for fame. But he wasn't hiding anymore either. The company that originally hired him promoted him to junior engineer in less than a month. Within 6, he had his own prototype project, and not just to test his skills, but to lead. His designs were fast, efficient, and built with a practical edge most teams overlooked. Because Jamal never forgot where he came from. He still wore his old courier uniform in his workshop sometimes, not out of nostalgia, but as a reminder, smart doesn't always look how people expect. He began mentoring others like him, self-taught tech minds who never got the chance to step through the right doors. He taught them how to solder, how to analyze boards, how to trust their instincts. He taught them how to speak up when they saw something no one else did. And soon, Jamal wasn't just a technician. He became a symbol. A symbol of what happens when skill meets opportunity. When gatekeepers step aside. When companies stop asking, "Where's your degree?" and start asking, "What can you do?" Why does this matter? Because for every Jamal who speaks up, there are 1,000 others who stay quiet, not because they lack talent, but because they've been told they don't belong. Jamal's story flipped that script. He didn't just solve a problem in a lab, he disrupted a culture. A culture that's now being forced to ask. How many brilliant minds have we ignored because we couldn't see past the uniform? Jamal never set out to become a disruptor. But he did what real innovators always do. He saw a system that didn't work, and fixed it.